Hello and welcome to this video on classes and objects in Java. In this video, we'll be seeing about what are classes, what are objects, how to initiate an object, and some coding examples to understand them better. So let us dive into the coding part. So classes and objects are basic concepts of object-oriented programming that revolve around real-life entities. First, we'll be seeing about classes. Class is a set of objects which share common characteristics or behaviors and common properties and attributes. Class is not a real-world entity. It is just a template or a blueprint from which objects are created. Classes do not occupy memory. Class is a group of variables of different data types and a group of methods. So a class in Java contains data members, methods, constructors, nested class, and interference. So this might feel like a lot of theory. We'll understand them better with the example. So let us try to declare a class. We can declare a class by initiating a separate class, keyword class, and then have the class name. For example, I'll have a class called student. So I'll be using the student class to hold the values of the students' IDs and names under a common variable. So if I have details like ID and name, and instead of giving me student ID, student name for each of the student, I'm clubbing these aspects into a single class called student. So I declare a class by declaring the name, and then I'll give integer ID. I give the data type of the variable that I want to use and then string name. So I have a ID and string name. Along with this, I'll be able to provide some characteristics for the student. For example, I'll initialize another variable marks, and I can get the values of these marks by using a method. So how do I do that? I'll have a function defined called getMarks, and I'll open the parenthesis. Inside my getMarks, now I can provide a variable of marks is equal to 20. So by doing so, whenever I call this method getMarks, the value of mark get initialized as 20. So how does it actually initiate? The class contains modifiers. Modifiers is a class can be public or a default access modifier. So by default, our class is default access, and we'll be using the class keyword, and then we'll have the class name. Class name should begin with an initial letter, and then we have interference, and then we have interfaces. We'll be learning about interfaces later. Then we have the body. The body is surrounded by the curly braces. So we have other concepts like constructors, nested classes that we'll be seeing in the later videos. So how do I bring my class into action? By using objects. Objects is the basic unit of object-oriented programming and represent real-life entities. A typical Java program creates many objects and interacts by invoking methods. An object consists of state. It is also represented by attributes of an object. It reflects the properties of an object. Behavior. It is represented by methods of an object. It also reflects the response of an object with other objects. And the last is identity. It gives a unique name to an object and enables one object to interact with the other object. So in this example, I'll be declaring a class called student. We'll be using the same example here, and in my main function I'll be giving my class name, and I'll be assigning a variable name for it, s1 equal to, and I'll then use the keyword new means I'm dynamically allocating a name for this class student. So now by doing this, my s1 is created, and it will contain this ID, name, and marks variables, and along with that I will be able to access this values of this marks. So let us try to invoke the getMarks function. First I'll try to print the value of marks. So let me use this function to invoke my marks. So how do I do that? I'll give the variable name dot get marks. And by doing this, the value of marks is now assigned as 20. Now let me try and check if this code is working by printing the value of marks. S1 dot marks. So by giving S1 dot marks, the one particular class of student S1 which contains the variable marks is being accessed to print it out. I'm saving the program, going to my terminal and run the code. As you can see, the value of mark is now being printed. So an object corresponds to things found in real world. For example, a graphic program may contain objects such as circle, square, or menu. An online shopping system might have objects such as shopping cart, customer, and product. Declaring objects. So when an object of a class is created, the class is said to be initiated. All the instances share the attributes and behavior of the class, but the values of those attributes, that is the state, are unique for each object. A single class may have n number of instances, meaning now I'll be able to declare another class student with another variable name s2 and define the values separately. So what do I mean by that? Now if I again call this get marks and try to print the value of s2, it's gonna print 20. So now let me try to print the s2 of marks. Java C, run the code. As you can see, using get marks, I'm able to print the value 20. Now I can also assign the value of marks by making variable equal to 30. Now when I try to print the value, what happens? The value is 30 now. So this goes same for ID and name. I'll be able to assign these values and change. I can also use these methods to print the codes here. For example, I can have get ID and initialize my ID to maybe 123, and then I can have functions for each of my variables. Along with that, I can try to print these values. So how can I print these values? I'll be able to use a function show data. I just name it on my own conventions, and I'll have my system dot out dot println and try to print ID, and I'll copy paste this to print the value of marks. Yeah, so now I'll assign the values of my s2 dot id is equal to 15, and here I'll just call my value of s1 dot get id. So here I'm using my methods to get the values assigned default by the class, and here I'm able to do it manually. So now let us try to print the values of ID and marks by using the function instead of us explicitly typing. So show data, s1 dot show data, and I'll be providing s2 dot show data. As you can see, the ID values 123 and 20 by default, and our manual typing of ID and marks is 15 and 30, and all four values are printed. So we declare variables with the data type and name semicolon. This notifies the compiler that we will use the name to refer to data whose type is a type. With the primitive variable, this declaration also reserves the proper amount of memory for the variable. So for referential variable, the type must be strictly a concrete class name. In general, we can't create objects of an abstract class or an interference. We'll be learning about abstract class and interference in the later videos. A lot of things can be done with the class. We'll be seeing in depth in the following videos. Hope this video was helpful. We'll see you in the next video. Thank you.